Everything is dependent on something else. There are 4 nuggets that I would like to share with you tonight. Number 1, words are the equation for feelings. Number 2, conversation is the equation for understanding. Number 3, listening is the equation for learning. And number 4, knowledge is the equation for change. Here's a very, very important statement. The changes in your life is always proportional to what we know. The changes in our life, I want that to sink in, is always proportional to what we know. If we don't know something, we can't do it. We can't do something that we don't know. It's impossible. So the purpose of knowledge is to create change. Jesus, he developed his character through the 12 men that he chose to mentor. He confronted their attitudes in love. He changed their values. He comforted them in their unbelief. He had a continual relationship with them in spite of their attitudes. This is what I call an unimaginable calling. Now, everything that Jesus does, he does it for a purpose. So pay close attention. Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he said this in John 14 and 12. He says, "Verily, verily, I say to you, he that believes on me, the works that I do, he shall do also. And greater works than these shall he do." Trust is involved here. We have to trust, we have to believe that God is preparing us for something greater than what we're experiencing right now. I want you to pay close attention. This is just my introduction. I'm really getting to some real important things and the crux of the message. Please stay with me. Don't log off. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't go in your kitchen. Stay right here with me, okay? We're talking about an unimaginable calling. It produces an unimaginable ministry, which will require an unimaginable preparation. I have a visual that you're going to see on the screen. Online audience, you're going to see a slide. And this is what the equation says. An unimaginable calling plus an unimaginable preparation equals an unimaginable ministry. I want to take a few moments just to explain this. The calling portion, we don't have anything to do with this. It was predetermined before we were created. But the preparation part, that's where we come in. That takes work. It requires us to do something. And then calling plus preparation, it produces the unimaginable ministry. Your calling will require seasons, plural, with an S on the end, seasons of preparation. We are not born qualified, but we become qualified. I have a couple of examples today. Hopefully I get through them all. But if not, don't worry. Hopefully I'll be back. My first example is Moses. Moses, he required preparation. He spent his first 40 years, 40 years, learning the wisdom of the Egyptians. Now, one thing I need us to understand is that there is a season for learning, and there is a season for doing. Learning, doing. After a period of learning, we can become qualified. Well, how do we become qualified? We become qualified when we start doing. When Moses started doing, he became qualified doing what he learned. What we learn has to be exercised. It has to be put into practice. In Exodus, the 6th chapter, verses 10 and 11, "And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Go in, speak unto Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, that he let the children of Israel go out of this land. Now, after 40 years, 40, the time had come for Moses to exercise what he'd been learning and what he'd been taught. But after 40 years of learning the wisdom of the Egyptians, Moses still didn't think that he was qualified to speak to Pharaoh. 40 years. Remember, we are not born qualified, but we must become qualified. Moses is just like us. Moses was born unqualified, like us. But, there's always a but, he became qualified. And so we can also become qualified. But this is an independent, individual decision. It's up to us. I want to just take a moment to encourage someone today that none of us, absolutely none of us, are born qualified. None of us. We become qualified by doing. And I want to just let that sink in, and I want us to really start doing some different things here. It's not going to be easy. The first thing that we must do is we have to break away from bad habits. And for some reason, we are the last one to believe that we have bad habits. But bad habits are our greatest enemy. Bad habits prevent us from fulfilling the purpose and or the ministry that God has for us. You will never change your life until you change something that you do daily. Did you get that? Start breaking those bad habits one at a time. I don't care if you have 1,000 bad habits. Start with one. And if you start with that one, once you break that one, then you move to number 2. And once you break number 2, you move to number 3, and so on until you have them all broken. But just start with one. Start today with, all right, this is the bad habit I have to break. Just start with that. Now back to the Bible. Moses, he had a bad habit. It was called excuses. Even after he had a burning bush experience, he still continued to hold on to those excuses. Listen to what he told God in Exodus 4:10. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. Here's what Moses was saying. He said, Lord, I don't speak well. They won't listen to me. Maybe some of you have said, Lord, I can't do this because, and there's a blank there, and I want you to fill in the blank. Lord, I can't do this because. Fill in that blank. Why did Moses say that he wasn't eloquent? Was he lying? Was Moses lying? No. He wasn't lying. He was fearful. And fear produces excuses. Fear talks. I know this might sound strange to you, but fear, it speaks. It talks to us. And fear can override what we know we're supposed to do. Fear distracts us, and it takes us off course. Fear was talking to Moses because Acts 7:22 says this, and Moses was learned in all the wisdom, he was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deeds. In other words, he spoke well. He spoke very well. And he had powerful actions. He was just talented. He had the ability, but he was afraid. So a man becomes what he thinks. Moses' thinking made him believe that he didn't have what he really had. The Bible tells us what he had. It says he was mighty in words and in deeds. His mind, or rather fear, told him that he didn't have this. He had all that he needed, yet he was afraid to use what he had. And let me tell you something. If we don't use what we have, we lose it. We go backwards. So Moses spent, after this first 40 years, he spent another 40 years learning the lessons of leadership and priesthood. In Exodus 3:1, it says, "Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb." So after Moses underwent training for 40 years, he underwent more training for another 40 years. So 40 plus 40 equals what? Online audience, I want you to do some addition here. We're having some mathematical equations. Let's go to Acts 7:30-31. "And when 40 years were expired," I just want to give you a biblical foundation, okay? "And when 40 years were expired, there appeared unto him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush." 40 years. 40 plus 40 equals what? 80. So Moses was a learner for 80 years. 80. His first 40 years educated him about his enemies. And his second 40 years educated him about people. Preparation. Preparation is the condition of being prepared in advance or beforehand for some future event. Now, I know some of you are probably saying, gosh, 80 years, that's a long time. Maybe some of you aren't even 80 years old. But let's not focus on the amount of time that Moses was in a season of preparation. I want you to eat the meat and throw away the bone. I want you to get the crux of what we're talking about here. Everything that we do, everything, it takes preparation. So in Exodus 6:11, we don't have to turn to it. We talked about it earlier. God told Moses to go, okay? Now, there's a real lesson in this. We don't learn by just sitting down in these pews or sitting on our couch or sitting in a chair or just sitting. We don't just learn by that. We learn by doing. There is a season for learning and there is a season for doing. We grow and we learn more by doing. If I just sit here, if I'm just sitting down, whatever this is, right here, it's the step to the stage. But wherever you're sitting and you're learning, if all you're doing is sitting and taking notes or just sitting and listening, there's only but so much that the brain can retain. There's only but so much this little brain can retain. But the moment that I stand up and I put into practice what I'm learning, then I'm no longer restricted to just this one little space. But now I have unlimited amount of things that I can grow and I can develop into once I get moving. I want you to raise your hand if you want to grow. My online audience, I want you to respond on the live feed. Raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature, or just say something in the comments if you want to grow. If you want to just stay where you are, that's fine. That's fine. God bless you. I wish you the best. But to those who want to grow, I want you to raise your hand or say a comment. Some people are content, and some of us, we get real complacent and we get comfortable where we're at, and it's fine. But those that are saying, I want to grow, God sees your hand. God sees it. My second example, Jesus. Jesus required preparation for his calling. Jesus spent 30 years preparing for 3.5 years of ministry. 30 years. In Luke, the 3rd chapter, verse 23, again, just giving you some biblical foundation. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age. My third example, Paul. The Apostle Paul also required preparation, like the other two examples, Jesus and Moses. But he invested years of preparation. We cannot serve God in the flesh. Preparation means that we're getting full of the Spirit of God. So there is a natural application, and there's also a spiritual application that operates at the same time that preparation is being made. In Philippians, the 3rd chapter, verse 4, though I might also have confidence in the flesh, if any other man think that he has whereof he must trust in the flesh, I have no more, or I have more. Paul is saying, I should know better than anyone. I did this already. I was Saul the persecutor. I was in the flesh. I know this firsthand. Verse 6, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. Paul was saying that we need a season of preparation. We need a season of preparation. Now, seasons, plural, of preparation, they perfect us for our calling and our ministry. They perfect us. So preparation has a purpose. Remember that equation that we went over? It yields the calling or the ministry, the seasons of preparation. And there are actually 11 seasons of preparation for your calling. So if you have not been taking notes, I strongly urge you to start taking notes right now. There are 11 seasons of preparation. I'm going to name them so you can jot them down and look them over on your own time. Number 1, seasons of affliction. And I'm going to just list these. These are not, I did not put these on the screen, so I just want you to jot these down because there's going to be 11 of them. So, seasons of affliction, 2 Timothy 1 and 8, and Psalms 119 and 71. Number 2, the second season of preparation is called seasons of chastening. Actually, I'm sorry, this one is the one that's Psalms 119 and 71. So seasons of chastening is Psalms 119 and 71. Number 3, seasons of contention. Hebrews 12, verses 6 and 11. Number 4, seasons of credibility. 2 Timothy 2, verses 23 and 24. Number 5, seasons of disappointment. 2 Timothy 4 and 5. Number 6, seasons of injustice. 2 Timothy 4 and 10. Number 7, seasons of isolation. 2 Timothy 4 and 14. Number 8, seasons of persecution. 2 Timothy 4 and 16. Number 9, seasons of solitude. 2 Timothy 3 verses 11 to 12. Number 10, we're almost there. Seasons of suffering. 2 Timothy 1 verse 4. Number 11, seasons of warfare. 2 Timothy 2 and 12. There are 11 seasons of preparation. 11. We need to embrace the present season that God has scheduled in our life, and we need to extract every possible benefit from each of the seasons, because that's how we grow and that's how we increase. Success is inevitable for the prepared. Success is inevitable for the prepared. We've talked a lot about preparation, but preparation is for the moment, now, N-O-W. And I want to say capital N-O-W because I want to emphasize that preparation is for now. We have to move and we have to start doing now. Too many of us have just been comfortable and we've been sitting down, but the preparation is for a particular moment to be fulfilled. Jesus' whole life was prepared for one moment to die on the cross. Moses' entire life was prepared for one moment to be a deliverer of the children of Israel. One moment, 80 years for one moment. Who knows what preparation God is putting you through for one moment? And if we could just show this picture, who knew that a little baby in a basket going down the Nile River will be the start of the preparation for one moment to become a deliverer? Going down the Nile River, baby Moses was in that basket and he was faced with obstacles. Now the Nile River was not smooth. It wasn't just nice and calm. It was not smooth at all. And it's not a very safe river. Can you imagine that while Moses was traveling down this river, he was faced with big, deadly crocodiles like you see on the screen, hippopotamuses, deadly snakes, lizards, birds, but he never came out of the basket. He never got eaten up by any of these dangerous animals that he could have encountered. In addition to the huge waves and the rough waters, he never came out of the basket. He arrived safely to his destination, Pharaoh's palace. Let me tell you something. When there is a calling on your life, you will face obstacles, but nothing can stop you. Only we stop ourselves. But when there is a calling on our life, let me tell you something. You see what happened with Moses? We're going to face obstacles. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it. I wonder how many of you that are listening online or right here, the few of us that are here, can relate to this. Does this illustration describe you? Can you relate to this? If it relates to you, if you can identify with this, please don't stop there. Don't stop where I've stopped. There's a lot more that I haven't said. I want you to study. I want you to continue on. And if you become great, it's because of you. Remember that equation, if we can just show that again. An unimaginable calling plus an unimaginable preparation equals an unimaginable ministry. I want you to decide today that you're going to do the work. That middle portion of the equation requires work. There's something that you have to do. And when I was preparing this, I had this great feeling that there are a number of people who know what they're supposed to be doing, and yet they're not doing anything. That you know. I just want to pray right now. God, I thank you for your word. And I pray, God, that whoever you've been speaking to, God, that they have a changed mindset. And God, I pray that they would do the work. God, that they would just begin to move. And as they begin to move, that God, you will line everything up. And that everything will work according to your plan so that they will walk into this unimaginable ministry and this calling that you have on their life. God, I pray that you give them courage. Even if they're fearful, God, I ask that you give them courage to move. That they would move in spite of the fear. That they would take one step at a time. I thank you, God. And I pray, God, that you just continue to work with them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.